Today, I'll be joined by Atlantic contributor, podcaster, former ESPN journalist, and author Jemele Hill. Congratulations on the book. How's it going?
It's good. I mean, I'm still trying to take everything all in, but yeah, this has been a very much a whirlwind experience.
Memoir is different than getting to talk about other people and reporting on other people because you have to open up, and talk about your own stuff. What was that like for you?
It was definitely challenging at some moments, particularly dealing with, incidents that I thought I pretty much had unpacked a while ago. And so then resurfacing those incidents and then living through them all over again. That was, challenging at some spots. But, overall, I wanted to approach this book with in the spirit of transparency. And so even if it resulted in sort of reliving through some things, I think what I got out of it at the end of it was definitely worth those moments.
Like there's some parts in the book that's really heavy. We'll get to that, but then there's some parts that could come off as heavy that just had me dying laughing. Like the image of your mom of
You
your
sound
mom
like my husband.
your mom showing you the crack was like almost like a Boondocks episode, but her strategy worked.
Yeah, I mean, not that that was at the forefront of my mind at that particular age, but it was you know what I'm saying? I mean, it was I think I compared in a book to a very extreme say no to drugs commercial that was happening right in front of my face. And it was one of those things, at least in the moment, where even as a kid, I'm thinking like, wow, is this how bad things have gotten right now? It's like, is that where we are? But a lot of the aggressive and intensive parenting that my mother did came from the place of her not wanting me to repeat the same mistakes. And so, even though that was a serious and dramatic scare tactic, I mean, as you said, it did work because I've never wanted to have any association with any hard drugs.
I grew up in a family plagued with addiction as well, and I feel like the long term impact it had on me was my it just made me look at a lot of my early relationships in life. Until I realized this, it made me look at a lot of my early relationships. It's just temporary. Like everything's temporary. These people are going to be around for a short amount of time. Don't get too comfortable. Don't get too close because anything can happen. Do you feel like addiction has shaped you in any way, or just learning how to, your coping mechanisms?
Oh, definitely. I think one of the biggest ways that it shaped me was that I struggled and have struggled throughout my life with vulnerability. And a lot of that came from having to survive certain things, having to grow up earlier than I should have been able to, just in terms of being, introduced to like very adult and traumatic problems. So it caused me to build an armor around myself. And I think that armor has been difficult to break. I mean, it's certainly broken at some points, but over a lot of it is because I felt like through most of my life, and especially about what I saw as a child, that, opening up, being vulnerable, those are things that can be very costly.
How do you break that armor? Is it even possible? Because we both, we work in publishing and media, and you kind of need an armor. These motherfuckers are ridiculous.
Yeah, I think you definitely need one. So I'm not saying that you should go around open hearted and willing to share with everyone, but I think in the relationships that I really valued, I wanted to be able to be more vulnerable and be more open. And I just really, I struggled to, I really couldn't. And, um, I think it would have been a easier way for me to communicate, with people, and instead of just being somebody who thinks about things and broods over things a long time, that I think is healthy and human and normal to get things off your chest, or to, not necessarily in a negative way or trying to create any kind of conflict or in the midst of conflict, but just being able to openly communicate to somebody just even how much you care about them or feel. ESPN was such a different place to be because the whatever attention, readership, viewership you were used to reaching before, I mean, it quadruples when you get to ESPN because unintentionally they created the celebrity sports journalist. And that was probably the most difficult part to get used to at ESPN. The other stuff I dealt with in my career in terms of, hate mail, having people wonder why I'm there and the scrutiny, but it is just so much more magnified at ESPN because of the magnitude of the platform. And, it was uncomfortable, especially coming from a newspaper background where you're often told that you're not the center of the story and that the journalist is not supposed to be out there. And at ESPN, it's not, you know, um, everything starts with the person. So it's not just, the Lakers aren't very good. It's Stephen A. Smith said the Lakers aren't very good. And
Mhm.
so because of that element of your name being strongly attached to the opinions that you have, and that people saying, oh, it's not that you're pointing out something obvious, it's that you're the one pointing this out, that took a lot of adjusting to.
I think one of the things that frustrated me when you told the truth about Donald Trump in a time where a whole lot of people were biting their tongues, you told the truth. It's like sports has had a history of being the only profession where winning was more important than race. You can hate black people from Monday to Saturday, but when they got on that football field on Sunday, that was your brother. That was your main man, right? And you used your platform to highlight something that was really, really like a problematic in our country, still is, and people responded as if you were speaking a different language. What was your headspace like during that particular time?
Well, I guess one place it was is, am I about to lose my job over Donald Trump of all things? And so, yeah, of course, I, thought about how that might impact my employment. And then there was a concern of safety because when you criticize somebody who has the persona of Donald Trump, he has an aggressive cult that follows him. And whenever he's criticized, they go on the attack. And I had been, getting hate mail since I was in college. So the hate mail aspect is not new, but it's very different when it's hate mail coupled with death threats and just very strong, strong opinions about how people feel about you, just a barrage and nonstop barrage of that. And, I remember when one of the executives at ESPN had given me a batch of hate mail, snail mail that people had sent to the network. And so I read like a couple of the letters, and then the rest of them are just like didn't even bother to read because at some point you have to protect your spirit.
I'm like,
And
I remember that time. Like I remember that time. Like I remember when you had went to undefeated, and I remember when you first started at the Atlantic, and something that was on my mind is like, I just wonder what's the most racist shit Jamel ever heard. Like,
well, I got to be honest though, the racist slurs that always humorously that like I frankly laugh at are the old school ones. Like you used to be called the N word. Like all right, okay. But it's when somebody breaks out the occasional like darkier coon. That's when I'm like,
Yeah,
man,
they
you
went
reach
back.
back for that one. They went, but which I should not be surprised at because if you are doing the old school thing of actually mailing me a letter, that's a lot of commitment.
That's a
You
lot
had
of
to
commitment to
you had to
racism.
find some paper. You know what I'm saying? You had to write it down. You had to
You
get
get
a
a stamp.
stamp. You had to take it to the mailbox or the post office. I was like, you really thought this through. And so yeah, like it was, or the people who type racist slurs, and I'm just like, so you typed a letter to me calling me an N word? Like, man, that's just. I mean, I'm not even mad. I'm impressed that you took the time out to do that.
Even though the racists are still racist, there are a lot more people who believe what you said. They now proudly call Trump a white supremacist, knowing that Would you go back to ESPN under the same capacity?
Um, I think that one of the reasons why it was time for me to leave is that I kind of had outgrown what my role was there. I mean, you never say never, but there was just nothing else left for me to do. I mean, I hosted Sports Center. I had my own daily sports show. I'd done radio, podcasting, wrote for ESPN.com. I pretty much did
Right.
sideline reporting. I did everything there was to do there. And so it just felt like the mission was over. And it's kind of like in a relationship where you kind of know the time it's run its course. And so that's what
Right.
it felt like to me. And I wouldn't just say this about ESPN, but I think the experience and how I left there, like that last year, um, it really showed me that I'm ready to be in a season in my life where if I don't want to do something, or if I do want to do something, there's one person to consider, and that's me. So, I think the days of having to ask for permission to do things, of having email chains about whether or not you should do something, like I'm just done with that. So there's a certain amount of
No, that's
corporate culture.
good. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
fuck an email chain.
definitely for real, right? Like that's not my testimony anymore. Um, if any email chains I have now, it's about strategy, it's about things that make sense, and my participation is understood. But yeah, I just I think I knew what I signed up for when I was in traditional media for as long as I was, and I was okay with that bargain. And but now I don't think I am, and even working in spaces still that are traditional corporate structures, I very much tell them what they can expect from.
Tell everyone when they can catch up with you and when they can get the book.
Well, the book is available wherever books are sold, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, wherever y'all buy books. Of course, I'm encouraging people to buy books from Black bookstores because it feels like in some respects they're almost on the endangered species list. And I'm the nerdy kid that grew up having a library card and love neighborhood bookstores, and I realized they're important not just for those individual communities, but clearly as a journalist, I encourage people to read. Not enough reading is done these days, if you ask me. So they can certainly get the book anywhere. And there is audiobook version. So your Audible, your Spotify, like it's there, all right, as well, or Apple Books. So yeah, I mean, it's we and wide release right now. And so I also have some tour stops that are coming up. And so if people want to check out where those are from my social media channels, you certainly can. So I'll be in New York, Baltimore, DC, Atlanta, San Francisco, LA, and of course, Detroit.
Congratulations and thank you